Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. I'm Emmanuel, I'm a former Boeing 737 pilot and a member of the PMDG 737 tech team. Welcome to our tutorial series for the PMDG 737 in Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024. This series is going to be based on the procedures I used to use when I flew the 737 in the real world, but I will slightly adapt them for single pilot usage in the flight simulator. So, today we're going to fly the 737-800 from Cologne to Palma de Mallorca, a flight that's operated daily by Ryanair, and in the summer even up to 5 times a day. Now, let's go ahead and get right into this one. In today's video we will cover the electrical power-up and of course how to enter the airplane in the first place, because Flight Simulator does load the flight up in the walk-around mode, so for aircraft equipped with the Airstairs, like Ryanair's aircraft are, we are going to have to extend them. So the Airstair control panel is located right here, we can open that one, and then depending on whether the airplane has power applied or not, we need to decide whether to use the standby power or the standard buses. Now, in most situations when the airplane is cold and dark, standby power is needed. Since I am recording this one with a beta version, there is a small bug which requires me to have the switch on normal, but just be aware normally it needs to go up into the standby position when the airplane is cold and dark. Then we hold the other switch to extend the Airstairs, and as you can see that first opens the door and then the Airstairs themselves are coming out. We wait until the operation is complete, and only when it is complete we can actually release the Airstair control switch. Now we can close the panel again, very important you do this. This thing is loved to be forgotten in the open position at times. Alright, now from here we can open up the door by clicking on the door handle, and that's going to open it so that we can actually enter our aircraft. So follow me inside. Now here we are in the flight deck of our 737. We are going to start this video by going over the standard procedures. So the first thing we do when entering the flight deck, apart from maybe putting away our coat and putting our flight bags in place, is to start with what we loved to call the so-called safety rainbow. Now, let's go over what exactly that involves. It starts by checking the surfaces and chocks of the aircraft when on the outside. So you make sure that there are chocks in place, you check that there are no general damages to the airplane. Next we check the maintenance status. We verify the technical logbook, any possible MEL items that the airplane may have. That's basically stuff you do before you even enter the flight simulator. So let's go ahead and start powering her up. We are doing this while standing in the back of the flight deck here before we even take a seat, because sometimes it's really hard to actually get to some of the controls. So starting from down here we are going to turn the battery on, and if an external power unit is connected, which we can see through the blue light over here, then we are going to connect that external power. So, from here we ensure that the electric hydraulic pumps are switched off. We check that the landing gear lever is in the down position. We check the entire logbook for the airplane's condition, and then we can continue with the fire test. So this is done right down here, and we got a couple controls. We start by putting the test switch into the fault and inert position and verify that we do see the 2 lights illuminate. Next we put it into the overheat and fire detect position, wait until all the 4 lights are coming on, and then we're going to cancel it using the fire warning button on the side over here. So I've been a little bit slow here, let's do that again, like that, and then we make sure that we can actually cancel the horn. So from there we continue on by checking that the fire extinguishers actually work by putting the selector to the left side, verifying all 3 lights illuminate, and then the same thing to the right side, verifying all 3 lights illuminate, and then back into the normal position. Now, if required for outside conditions, we would start the APU next, but only if it's required. So for example, if it is very cold or if it is very hot, then we might start the APU now, or if there is no ground power unit available, which there usually is. So If we start the APU, then we would simply take the APU switch up here and move that to the front into the start position, hold it for a second, then it goes back to the on position, and as soon as the APU is available, the APU generator of bus light illuminates here, and then you can turn it on using the APU generator switches. In most situations, though, you are not going to start the APU and remain on external power for the time being. So, once that is done and electrical power is applied to the aircraft, we are going to move forward and arm the emergency exit lights simply by closing the cover. We are going to test the attendant call button, which is over here. Then we are going to move down and ensure that the flap lever agrees with the actual flap position. So right now we can see the flaps are up on the gauge, and we ensure that the flaps are actually in the up position. Then we check the takeoff configuration warning, and you do that in 3 occasions. First with the left thrust lever, which you move to the front until the configuration warning sounds. Then we return that to idle. Then you take the engine 2 thrust lever, same thing, and then we do both. The reason we do it that way is because we want to ensure that both guards are working and that the standard takeoff setting is working as well. Now from there we move a little bit further down and check the cargo fire detection system, which is down here. Press and hold the test button and ensure that we see both the red lights as well as the discharge light illuminated, together with the extinguishing squibs illuminated over there as well. From there we would check the passenger announcement system, but PMDG does not actually have a PA headset installed on this particular airplane here. Then you move down, check that all 3 gear pins are on board, and if those gear pins are missing, establish the reason why they are missing. From there, we move further down to the manual gear extension access door, which is located down here. This is quite a tricky one. If this door is open, the landing gear lever is not functional. So it's very important to check that this door is actually closed down here. Now from there we move to check that all the emergency equipment is on board the airplane, for example the fire extinguisher over here, and then we can already move on to the circuit breakers. We check the entire side, and the easiest way to check a circuit breaker is just by moving to the side, because anything that may be plopped is going to be easily visible. So like this, we check that all circuit breakers are in. We check that the emergency escape rope is in place, and then we move a little bit further to the front, turning on the cockpit voice recorder, and then we move further up and check the flight data recorder by unguarding the switch and putting it to the test position. Then you can see that the off light extinguishes, and then we put it back to normal and the off light is coming back on. Next we test the clackers, so the overspeed warnings, number 1 and number 2. From there we move further down and check the stall warning tests, and in order for those to work, the airplane needs to be powered for at least 4 minutes. So you press and hold the switch, and then you can see that the stick shaker number 1 is operating down there, and now we do the same for number 2 as well. Like this. We're moving further inwards, check that the passenger oxygen switch is guarded, that we've got sufficient oxygen pressure for the crew oxygen system, service interphone switch as needed, normally that's going to be in the off position, dome light as needed, and then we turn the IRS, both of them, into the nav position. From there, we check that the GPS, IRS and GLS lights are not illuminated. We check that the PSEU light is not illuminated. And then we move to the side, checking over here for the escape rope to be in place. We check the circuit breakers on the captain's circuit breaker panel. And then finally ensure that let's say that the axe is in place as well. And that's basically our entire safety check and the safety rainbow. From here we can now move ahead and take a seat on the captain's seat of our Boeing 737. Something that I personally like to do, even though it is outside the official procedure, is to cancel the master caution, because if anything new happens, it's going to plop up again. Versus if the master caution light is illuminated and something new comes on, it's not going to re-illuminate, it'll just stay there, making it more difficult to catch anything that may be happening. Once we've taken a seat, the first thing to do is the light test, and for that we are going over every single one of those lights that are installed in the flight deck. Each one of those lights has two bulbs fitted, one on the left and one on the right, and we're basically checking for any of those bulbs to be inoperative or any of the switches or lights themselves being inoperative overall. If that is the case, then you do have spare bulbs up here, which you can simply install yourself. Yes, that's the only maintenance action that a pilot is actually allowed to do. So, we go through the entire flight deck, make sure that all of those lights are working, and when they are, return the switch into either the bright position in daylight or the dim position at night. Note that the dim position can be so dim that it's sometimes difficult to see a light illuminate, so you really want to be a little bit careful there, ensuring that that switch is in the correct position. Now from there, let's move on, and the next check is for the sun visors to be installed. You've got one down here, and you also have the same thing on the first officer's side, where there's one down there as well. So from there we move on to the oxygen mask, and the oxygen test is a two-step procedure. First of all, we just press the press to test and reset switch, and we ensure that the yellow cross shows momentarily. Next we are going to press the emergency switch, and then press and hold the switch, and you can see now it has a continuous oxygen flow. While doing that, we move up to the aft overhead panel and ensure that there is no spikes or rapid losses of pressure in the system, which might indicate a leak somewhere in the oxygen system. When that is done, we move back up front, and now we are going to set the entire EFIS control panel. And the reason we do this at this time is because the weather radar must not be active. If the weather radar was selected up here, it would actually emit beams outside the front of the aircraft that could potentially injure people. So we check that we are on the correct setting for the altimeter units, hectopascals in most of the world. We check that our minimum is set to barometric, and we set the minimum flap retraction altitude, which is 1,000 feet above the field elevation in most cases. So the field elevation here in Cologne is around 300 feet, so we are going to set 1,300 on here. The way that you operate this panel is that you simply click it, and that moves the switch a little bit. If you click and drag it, it moves the switch a little bit further, which leads to an increase in larger steps, like you can see down here. Like this, we're going to set 1,300 on the panel like this. If you already know the current QNH, you can set it as well. If not, then we'll get to that in a few moments. We set an appropriate range on the nav display, usually 10 miles, and we ensure airport and terrain are selected and traffic is selected as well. We do that on both the captain's side as well as the first officer's side, like this. And that basically concludes the items that we have to do at this time. Next is going to be the FMC pre-flight, but we are going to do that as a dedicated separate video. So for now, thank you very much for watching. As always, be sure to leave your feedback in the comments underneath, leave any questions in the comments underneath, and then I'm really looking forward to see you all again right on the next one.